The sheriff's boots scraped across my freshly stained deck like nails on a chalkboard. "Mr. Caldwell," he muttered, tapping the official notice. "This entire backyard setup is flagged for immediate removal. 6 years of your life, every weekend, every penny, gone because some HOA busybody quietly slid a pink line across the map and called it progress." I stared at the paper, the words blurring into pure rage, but I didn't yell. Not yet. Because the real story wasn't the pink line. It was how one entitled Karen in pastel blazers turned a peaceful cul-de-sac into her personal kingdom. Until the kingdom bit her right in the designer handbag. Evergreen Meadows looked like the kind of place you see in real estate ads. Manicured lawns, white picket fences, kids on bikes, the whole postcard fantasy. When my wife and I bought the corner lot 6 years ago, it was a tired fixer-upper with cracked siding and a backyard that was basically a weed convention. No HOA drama at first. The association had been quiet, almost invisible. Karen Hargrove changed all that the day she won president by a landslide of lawn sign bribes and whispered, "Think of the property values." I'm Ethan Caldwell, 42, IT guy by day, weekend warrior by trade. While most dads binge Netflix, I was out there with a hammer and a dream. Every spare hour went into turning that yard into something our kids could actually remember. I built the raised garden beds by hand, planted native wildflowers that actually belonged in Texas soil, framed a 2-level cedar deck that caught the evening breeze just right. Solar panels on the roof, a rainwater system that saved us hundreds on bills, even a little workshop shed I framed from reclaimed barn wood. Nothing flashy, just honest work. The neighbors used to wave and say, "Man, Ethan, your place looks like a magazine spread." Karen. She smiled that tight, teeth-only smile at block parties and said things like, "We're so lucky to have such creative residents." Translation. I was already on her list. The first tiny jab came in year 4. A certified letter about non-compliant vegetation height. My wildflowers were apparently 2 inches too tall in one spot. I laughed it off, trimmed them, and thought that was it. Karen stopped by personally the next Saturday, clipboard in hand, pastel blazer spotless even in the 90-degree heat. "Ethan, darling," she cooed while her eyes scanned every board like they owed her money. "We just want everything to feel cohesive. You understand. Property values are everyone's responsibility." I nodded, kept sanding the deck rail, didn't give her the reaction she wanted. That was my first mistake, or maybe my smartest move. Because while Karen was busy measuring blades of grass with a ruler like a cartoon villain, I started quietly filming every interaction on my phone. Just in case. By year 5 the fines started stacking like bad poker hands. $150 for the unauthorized solar glare, $250 for the non-approved shed color, another $300 because my kids left a bike on the lawn for 20 minutes. I paid them. Quietly. My wife asked why I didn't fight back. I told her, let her feel like she's winning. People like Karen always overplay their hand. What I didn't say out loud was that I was watching. Learning her patterns. Noting how she never once mentioned the new community pavilion she'd been pushing at every closed-door board meeting, complete with infinity-edge pool and unobstructed sunset views. Funny how those views lined up perfectly with my backyard, once you squinted at the right angle. Then came the morning everything exploded. I was on the upper deck staining the final handrail when 3 shiny SUVs rolled up like a parade nobody asked for. Karen stepped out first, blonde hair, helmet sprayed into submission, reflective vest over her blazer because apparently measuring tape work is now OSHA regulated. 2 board members and a guy with a drone followed. She didn't even knock. Just walked straight onto my property like she owned the deed. "Ethan," she sang in that syrupy voice that made my teeth itch, "I'm afraid we have an update. As of last month's administrative boundary review, your rear lot line now falls within the expanded aesthetic buffer zone of Evergreen Meadows. The pavilion project requires clear sight lines, and your structures are in violation." She flipped the tablet around. There it was, the pink line. My deck, my garden, half my house, suddenly swallowed by pastel zoning that hadn't existed the day before. I laughed once, short and sharp. "Karen, this lot was never part of the HOA covenant. I checked the title 6 years ago." "Hell, Your own welcome packet said we were grandfathered. She tilted her head like I was the slow one. Developments evolve, Ethan. It's the owner's responsibility to stay informed. And since you never submitted architectural plans for retroactive approval, she let the sentence hang like a noose. One of the board guys started snapping photos of my solar panels like they were evidence at a crime scene. The drone buzzed overhead, framing my backyard for maximum encroachment drama. I kept my voice even. So you're telling me 6 years of permits, inspections, and sweat equity just vanished because you moved a line on a computer? Karen's smile never wavered. It's not personal, dear. It's standards. We can work out a voluntary compliance plan. Remove the deck, replant with approved sod, maybe a nice beige mailbox upgrade. Think of the resale value. Behind her, the drone guy chuckled like this was the funniest thing since HOA fines for holiday lights. That night, the first voluntary integration packet arrived. Glossy brochure showing smiling families around a pavilion that looked suspiciously like it was built on the exact footprint of my garden. Page 3 had a 30-day clock circled in red. Fail to comply and liens, foreclosure proceedings, the works. My wife read it and went pale. The kids asked if we were moving. I told them no. Then I sat at the kitchen table until 3 a.m., cross-referencing every County JS layer I could pull. Because something about that pink line smelled like cheap perfume and greed. The next 3 weeks were pure psychological warfare dressed up as neighborly concern. Karen's weekly courtesy visits became daily. She'd park her white SUV at the curb, clipboard ready, and lecture me about community harmony, while my neighbors peeked through blinds like it was reality TV. One morning she brought actual measuring tape and tried to stake flags in my grass. Just marking the new boundary for the surveyors, Ethan. I stood there filming openly now. Karen, the only thing you're measuring is how far you can push before someone pushes back. She laughed that fake little tinkle. Oh honey, we don't push. We enforce. The neighborhood group chat turned toxic overnight. He's lowering all our values. Selfish for not thinking of the kids' future pavilion. Karen had been busy. Screenshots of my violations circulated with captions like, "Some people just don't care about living in a premium community." My own kids came home from school asking why everyone said Daddy was the bad guy. That one stung. But I still didn't explode. Instead, I started compiling. Every fine receipt, every time-stamped video, every county record showing the administrative update had 0 public hearing, 0 board vote, and 0 tax reassessment. Because here's the thing nobody tells you about HOA Karens. They're great at rules until someone checks the actual rulebook. I posted the first video at midnight, 10 minutes of calm, boring facts. No screaming, no conspiracy rants. Just me walking the property line with the original survey pin still sunk in concrete, then cutting to Karen's pink line tablet, then zooming in on the GIS metadata that showed the boundary edit happened the exact week the pavilion renderings were filed under a Shell LLC. I titled it, "When Your HOA President Redraws Reality." By morning it had 40,000 views. Comments poured in from every corner of Texas. This happened to my aunt. They tried the same pink line trick in my subdivision. One retired surveyor dropped a gold mine. Public records proving Karen's husband sat on the board of the development company behind the pavilion. Conflict of interest so obvious it could have been written in neon. Karen's response was predictable and glorious. She called an emergency HOA meeting and tried to spin it as cyberbullying. Stood at the podium in her pearl necklace and said, voice trembling with practiced outrage, "We are a family here, and one individual is tearing us apart with social media lies." The room was packed. I sat in the back row, phone recording, letting her bury herself. Halfway through her speech about protecting our children's future, someone in the crowd yelled, "Then why does the pavilion render show my neighbor's yard as empty space?" Karen's face did something complicated, half smile, half stroke. That was the first crack in the armor. The real avalanche started when the county assessor's office got involved. Turns out you can't just redraw lines and start levying secret fines without updating tax rolls. My lawyer, Mabel, a pit bull in sensible shoes, filed the paperwork the next morning. Cease and desist, public records request, everything. Karen's emails went from condescending to frantic. "Ethan, let's talk like adults. I'm sure we can find common ground," I replied once. Common ground is the original property line. "See you in court." The escalation hit fever pitched the week the local news van showed up. Channel 5 ran a segment titled HOA Overreach or Legal Theft? With drone footage of my deck next to the pavilion renderings where my house had been photoshopped out like it never existed. Neighbors who'd been silent suddenly found courage. One guy admitted Karen had promised him a board seat if he helped pressure the holdout. Another neighbor's teenage daughter leaked the private group chat where Karen called my garden an eyesore that ruins the aesthetic for premium buyers. The comments under the news video were brutal and beautiful. "Karen needs her own pink line, straight to jail. This is why people hate HOAs." I read them at 2 a.m. with a beer and actually laughed for the first time in weeks. Dark laugh, sure, but still a laugh. Karen's final mistake was showing up at my house with the sheriff again, this time with an actual demolition crew idling at the curb. She strutted up the driveway like she'd already won, clipboard raised like a battle flag. "Ethan, the board has voted. You have 72 hours to begin removal, or we'll have to enforce." The sheriff looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight, eyes flicking to the pink line on her tablet like it personally offended him. I stepped outside, phone already live-streaming to the 80,000 people who'd subscribed overnight. "Karen, before you keep talking, you might want to see this." I handed her the thick folder Mabel had couriered over that morning. Inside, the original deed iron survey pins photographed with GPS coordinates, GIS edit logs showing the boundary change was done by a single user, Karen Hargrove, at 11:47 p.m. On a Sunday, no approvals attached. And the kicker? Emails between Karen and the pavilion developer discussing clearing the visual obstruction at 1422 Maple Crest for an extra 10% commission. Her face went the color of spoiled milk. This is doctored," she sputtered, but her voice cracked like cheap laminate. The sheriff took the folder, flipped through 3 pages, and something in his posture changed. He took off his sunglasses, slow, deliberate. "Ma'am," he said, voice flat as Texas asphalt, "I think we need to have a different conversation downtown." That was the moment the neighborhood held its collective breath. Karen tried the usual script. "Do you know who I am? My attorney will destroy you." But the cuffs clicked anyway, right there on my driveway under the same sunny sky that had watched me build every board of that deck. The crew she brought to demolish my life suddenly found urgent business elsewhere. Neighbors poured out of houses like it was a block party nobody wanted to miss. Someone actually started slow clapping. I didn't gloat. I just stood there, arms crossed, watching 6 years of quiet rage finally pay dividends. The fallout was swift and delicious. The entire HOA board resigned within 48 hours. The county opened a fraud investigation. Karen's husband's development company suddenly discovered they'd misfiled the pavilion permits. My backyard stayed exactly where it belonged, on my property. The viral video hit 2 million views. People started sending me stories from every subdivision in America, same pink line trick, same Karen in slightly different pastels. I turned the comments into a resource page. How to check your own GIS layers, what questions to ask at the assessor's office, the exact wording that makes lawyers sit up straight. But the real satisfaction came months later, when the state legislature quietly passed a bill making unauthorized boundary expansions a felony. They even named the clause after the viral clip, the Caldwell Amendment. I testified, short and boring, just facts. No drama. The lawmakers kept quoting my original video. I didn't build a battlefield. I built a home. Karen, meanwhile, was busy pleading down to community service, ironic since community was the word she'd weaponized for years. Last I heard, she was picking up trash on the same roads she once patrolled with her clipboard. I still walk the deck every evening. The wood has silvered in the sun, the wildflowers have gone feral in the best way, and the solar panels hum like they're laughing at the whole mess. The kids call it Dad's Fortress. My wife just smiles and says, "Told you the quiet ones are dangerous." And every time a new neighbor moves in, I make sure to hand them a copy of the original survey pins and a single piece of advice. Measure twice. Record everything. And never ever trust a pink line. The neighborhood feels different now. People actually talk to each other instead of through group chat warfare. The new HOA president is a retired accountant who hates drama more than he hates dandelions. We voted to scrap half the ridiculous rules. Flag size limits, approved flower colors, all that nonsense. Turns out when the queen loses her crown, the peasants remember they have pitchforks. But here's what keeps me up sometimes, staring at the stars over my deck. Karen wasn't some cartoon villain born evil. She was a regular suburban mom who discovered power tasted better than humility. The system handed her the clipboard, the bylaws, the ability to redraw reality with one late-night JS login, and nobody checked the receipts until it was almost too late. I won. My house still stands. My kids still play in the garden I built with my own hands. But how many quiet homeowners out there never hit record, never dug through the metadata, never found the iron pins still anchored in the dirt? How many dreams got bulldozed because nobody asked why the pink line moved? File 3. I finished the observation platform last month. A simple 8-foot tower at the back corner. Nothing fancy, just enough height to see the whole cul-de-sac stretch out like a Monopoly board someone finally stopped cheating on. From up there you can watch the new families planting their own gardens without asking permission first. You can see the pavilion site still sitting empty, permits frozen, investors running for the hills. And sometimes when the wind is right, you can almost hear the ghost of Karen's voice reciting her favorite line. It's not about you, Ethan. It's about standards. I laugh every time. Dark, satisfied, the kind of laugh that comes from knowing you didn't just save your own backyard. You reminded an entire neighborhood that rules only work when everyone plays by the same map. So here's the question I leave you with right now before you close this video. When a homeowners association redraws the line between community standards and outright theft, who's really the criminal, the guy who built the deck or the woman who tried to erase it with one click? Drop your answer in the comments. Right or wrong? Because after everything I've lived through, I'm still not sure the system learned the lesson, or if it's just waiting for the next Karen to pick up the clipboard. Thanks for watching. If this story hit home, smash that like button, share it with every neighbor who's ever been fined for the wrong shade of mulch, and subscribe for more real HOA nightmares where the little guy finally fights back. Your dream home is worth it. Don't let anyone pink line it away. See you in the next one.